Hey guys, what's back to the video? In this video, I'm going to be ranking all of the Pixar movies. This weekend, Elemental comes out and that marks the 27th Pixar movie. So in this video, I'm going to be tier listing all of the movies from the worst to the best. The tiers that I have in this video are going to be bad, meh, good, great, and best of the best. And before we get into my ranking, let me know your ranking for all 27 of these movies in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe and notification on so you don't miss any time I upload a video or I go live. But don't waste any more time. Let's get right into it. So starting off the list is Bug's Life. And honestly, I haven't seen this one many times. I'm going to put it at good. I feel like a lot of the Pixar movies are going to end up going in good. And really, there aren't many bad Pixar movies. I'm going to let you guys know that right out of the gate. I think A Bug's Life is always a good time. I think all the Pixar movies are baseline a good time. But I think creatively, as being one of the first Pixar movies, it definitely flourishes in actually having a very unique idea of seeing A Bug's Life. I think as a whole, again, very unique concept. But just in terms of also an emotional level, this movie doesn't pull as many strings for me personally as all of the other movies do. Next up on the list is Brave. This is arguably my least favorite Pixar movie. I'm putting this at bad. This is one of the few Pixar movies that will end up going in bad on this list because this movie is such a bore. From the middle to the end, it's very, very bad. The beginning is a little bit interesting, right? I think they take a good spot with the medieval design, the introduction of characters, and honestly, the lore as a whole. But as this movie goes on, it just gets more and more boring. And honestly, it doesn't feel like it does anything unique after you get that first ball rolling. Then we have all three of the Cars movies, so I'll just do these in order from 3, 2, and then 1. So Cars 3, this is much of, I would say, like an underdog story. Cars 3, I think this is actually, I don't know. I'm debating between meh and good. I would say good. I think it's above A Bug's Life. I think that might be a hot take, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. Cars movies as a whole, I'm very nostalgic for all of them. I was very young when they all came out, and so I was very, very interested in them. They're my childhood. I rewatched them all the time. Cars 3 came out when I was obviously a little bit older, but still, all three of these movies were my childhood. Next up is Cars 2. I also have a very, very soft spot for this one, and I'm going top of good, right above Cars 3. Honestly, I could see Cars 3 and A Bug's Life shifting down to meh by the end of this video. Also, if you guys didn't know, I do rank the movies within the tiers themselves just to give you guys a better understanding of what movie is on top of what in the tiers that they're actually in. But with that being said, I think it's time to talk about Cars. Now, I think when I was younger, I definitely would have put this at best of the best. But I think for now, I'm going to put it at the top of great with room to move around. And then we have Coco, and I have to say this is easily best of the best material. This movie makes me cry so much. It's not even funny. Like, I love Coco with every fiber of my being. I've seen this movie also way too many times. 7th grade, a Spanish class, we used to watch this movie all of the time, and it still never gets old to me. I love the music. I love the twists in this movie, and I also just love the creative flair. It takes something that I think would be really cool conceptually, like Day of the Dead, and just seeing all these like dead people rise up, the afterlife, all this like very cool conceptual stuff. And it really makes it work, and it makes it work perfectly. It's very fantastical, but still hits on all of the elements in terms of having heart and emotion. The song at the very end makes me cry every single time. And again, it's just such a well-crafted and unique movie that, again, takes a concept that feels very far-fetched that, you know, you hear about and you're like, oh my god, this would make such a great movie. And it does exactly that. It makes an amazing movie. Then we have Finding Dory and Finding Nemo. Finding Dory, I'm going to put this at great, but honestly, underneath Cars. I haven't seen Finding Dory in a little while, but Finding Nemo, I do rewatch very often. It is going in best of the best. I think it's going to go above Coco, just for nostalgia factors for me. The shark used to scare the hell out of me when I was a little kid, and honestly, this movie still really holds up. I think emotionally, it works a lot better for me because it's a father-son story, and I think I resonate with that a little bit more than Finding Dory's story about just finding family in general. But both of these movies do such a great job with the underwater world, and I think Luca tries to do that a little bit, but it never fully dives into the intricacies and honestly more of like a familiar familial element with like exploring the ocean, because again, the ocean is very vast and it feels like there's a lot of potential there. And out of any Pixar movie that like deals with underwater stuff, which there are only very few of them, Finding Nemo is one that does an amazing job with just like fully diving into the vastness of the ocean, how scary it can really be, because these fish have never gone these certain places, and it gets such a great exploration of characters as well, finally understanding like why they do what they do and how far the lengths they would go to find the people that they love. I think Finding Nemo, Finding Dory, yes, as a pair they're great, but I think Finding Nemo is definitely better. Then we have Inside Out, and this one's also going in best of the best. I think again, I resonated with this movie a lot when I was younger, and I think it still just works really well. Honestly, arguably the most creative Pixar movie. I mean, I know that's a very high bar because a lot of the older Pixar stuff is very, very unique, but Inside Out is a concept, at least, that I think is really cool. I think Bing Bong's death is one of the most devastating scenes in any Pixar movie in general, and just as a whole. Again, Inside Out is such a cool concept, and they really fully play out on it. There's so many great sequences, so many it's a very deep dive while still being a very like kiddie movie. I don't know, I just really like everything they do with this movie, both creatively, emotionally. They do a lot of cool stuff here. Then we have Luca, and I'm gonna go bottom of good for Luca because again, I enjoy this movie, but I feel like it's never at its true potential. I think at the end, it also works on an emotional level, building this like brotherhood of sorts, but again, it just doesn't strike that same chord. And I'll talk about the latest Pixar movies at the end of this video, because I think just in general, Pixar's kind of lost that touch that it used to have. But I think Luca tries to recapture that magic through small town brotherhood, that kind of feeling that you think would spark something in you, but sadly it just doesn't feel like the other movies on an emotional level, at least. I also think creatively they don't really do as much as what we've seen Pixar and Disney animation in general do in the past, because even if you look at another movie that's underwatery like Moana, even also obviously Finding Nemo, Finding Dory, they do something creative with the use of the ocean. And obviously Luca's story is a little bit different. They're focusing on more the surface world and how the sea monster is going to adapt to the surface world and stuff like that. And that's all great. That's really cool, a great concept. But you have the ocean right there, and it feels like they never fully take in every possibility that the ocean could be used for, and that inherently makes it just a little bit underwhelming for me. Then we have Monsters Inc. and Monsters University, and I think I have a hot take here, because I'm going to put Monsters Inc. at great, but I'll put it at the bottom of great, while I'm going to put Monsters University at the top of great. I think Monsters University is better than Monsters Inc., but I also think it's because I grew up on Monsters University and not Monsters Inc. And when I watched Monsters Inc. when I was very little, I got really, really scared, and I was always just completely scared of the movie. But even as I've gotten older, I've always found myself caring more about Monsters University. And I just think it's because I actually resonate with the story of belonging and friendship and understanding that, rather than Monsters Inc. kind of just like finding who you are and like those general themes. I think I more specifically relate to Monsters University. I'm excited to rewatch it now as I've gotten a little bit older. I don't think I've seen it in about a year, but I'm still very, very excited to get back to this movie. And Monsters Inc., there's not a problem with the movie. Like, I don't have a single problem with the Monsters Inc. movie, but it just never struck a chord with me personally, even though I'm saying all that, it's still in great because I still love the movie. Then we have Onward, and I also really enjoy this movie. I think more than most. It's also my last movie in theaters before the pandemic happened. I'm going to put Onward at good, but I'm going to put it at the very top of good. I think, again, it's another movie that I resonate with because it's about brotherhood, it's about brothers, it's about understanding each other, and just in general, again, it strikes a more personal, emotional core than a lot of these other movies, because obviously a lot of these other movies, and I'm going to mention some that are higher on the tier than Onward, but they strike a different type of emotional chord, like Up, for example, Wall-E. I think the emotional cores, yeah, they're stronger, but they're not something as much that I can relate to. And so I think Onward, obviously I relate to the emotional elements a little bit more, but the story itself isn't as strong as the other movies. That's why I think it kind of balances out to good. And then we have Ratatouille. I recently rewatched this movie, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure I never watched this movie in full. I'm gonna just let you guys know really quick. I'm putting it at best of the best, #1, and I don't think that's gonna change. But I do want to say, I don't think I ever actually fully watched this movie until very recently, because I knew every element of this movie, A to Z, from beginning to end, but I'm 99% sure I just watched big chunks of this movie at different times at the dentist office or randomly when it was on TV. Like, I don't remember fully sitting down and watching the movie in the order of events that things actually happened ever until I just recently watched it like 2 weeks ago. And you guys can check my older tier list videos. It used to be somewhere on Best of the Best, but it is 100% solidified as Best of the Best, #1 for me again. I don't think anything else on this list, at least from glancing at it right now, I don't think anything's above Ratatouille, and that's because not only is it very creative, and I think there are other movies that are more creative on this list, like even Inside Out, it's 10 times more creative and conceptually than Ratatouille, but I think the way that they pair the concept of just talking rats and humans and a rat cooking in France or Paris, like that's insane, right? But I think the fact, like, that message that like anyone can cook, like, I know people talk about that all the time. It's definitely like an overused motivational thing, but I don't care because it's perfect. Like, it is so well done throughout this entire movie. There's the familial themes of his dad not wanting him to do it, and also him siding against the humans and letting all of his family into the restaurant to cook. And then all of the rats coming together by the end of the movie to cook for the critic. I think this movie is practically perfect on every level. Like, I'm talking 9 to 9.5 out of 10. Anyways, moving on. Next up, we have Seoul. And Seoul, I'm gonna go bottom of good. I would probably say right above Luca, because I think, again, I resonate with Seoul a little bit more than Luca. But on a level of just, I didn't really feel anything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really, it's just a movie. Like, it's not something that I thought about. Whereas, like, honestly, everything on Best of the Best and Great and top of good is something that really sits with me, and I feel like I can like look back on it and understand or feel something different. But Soul and Luca, and honestly, there's another movie on this list that I feel the same exact way, or two more on this list that I feel the same exact way. I don't really feel anything after I watched the movie, even though I think Soul is thematically a lot more prevalent than all the other Disney Pixar movies, like the recent ones that we've got. I'd say like the last like 3 or 4. I think Soul is definitely the most like deep out of all of them, but again, I just don't really find myself looking back on it as much. Then we have the Good Dinosaur, which I'm also going to put in bad, and I'm debating putting it below Brave, but on my last tier list, I think I put it below Brave, so I'm going to put it there too this time. This movie sucks. I hate this movie so much. It tries to do, I think it was like the first Pixar movie that truly pissed me off because of it trying to be a little bit too real, and it just didn't feel like Pixar, and it genuinely frustrated me, and I was like, there's no way they keep doing this. And I don't think they did after that. After that, it kind of worked on another end of just like conceptually, it actually felt like unique, and I think Brave also does that. It's like conceptually, Brave doesn't really do anything unique or interesting, and so the Good Dinosaur and Brave obviously get paired together there. Then we have Incredibles and Incredibles 2, and so firstly with Incredibles 2, I'm gonna put Incredibles 2 at great. I'm gonna put it, I think I'll put it at top of great, and then I'll put The Incredibles in middle of Best of the Best above Coco. I think the first Incredibles movie is one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, or superhero movies of all time. It is so great. I love the world building. And then when you look at Incredibles 2, I love that it focuses a little bit more on Elastigirl, and I think that it really progresses like character-wise. It actually does something new. Whereas they could have just done it again on Mr. Incredible and a little bit more of his growth, but they completely revamp it. They revitalize, honestly, all of the characters, the dynamics. They do something so different in The Incredibles 2 that it still is a great film, and not just like some 10 years later redoing the family, stuff like that. Like, it actually works. Then we have Turning Red, and this is another one where I'm just a little bit torn. And for this, I think I'm gonna go meh. I think I would have gone under at the bottom of good before, but the more I think about it, Turning Red just isn't for me. You know, it's not something that I can relate to in the slightest. Like, I get the whole like be yourself and stuff like that, but like that's the basic theme of every Pixar movie to an extent. And so I don't see myself relating to this movie in any way. I don't find the creative elements to be something that I look back fondly on. It's just something that like, it's basically made for someone who is the opposite of me. It's made for little girls that are watching Pixar movies, not 17-year-old men. I was 17 at the time this movie came out. So I'm not saying this movie's bad. Again, I recommend everyone watch it for yourself, check it out, whatever. But I'm not the target audience for this movie. I don't think I'm the target audience for most of these movies, but most of them still work for me. Moving on, Toy Story franchise. First Toy Story, we're gonna go Best of the Best. I think I'm gonna go just under The Incredibles because I like superhero movies more, and that's kind of where I land on that. Toy Story 2, which is most like fond from me from the airport scene, which is absolutely amazing. I'm gonna go middle of great. Toy Story 3 though, this one, honestly, this might be a hot take, and I don't even know if I side by this opinion anymore. I don't know what I put it in my last Pixar ranking, but I think I'm gonna go on top of The Incredibles, underneath Finding Nemo. Honestly, it could go above Finding Nemo. No, I'm going to leave it there. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I could definitely shift this list around so much because all of the best are absolutely amazing. Also, if you're wondering why I didn't rank Toy Story 4, I have not seen it, and I don't think I ever will. It's my personal rise of the Skywalker. Like, I don't even know if the movie's that bad, but I just think the Toy Story trilogy is so perfect that I don't want to ruin it in the slightest for myself. Starting off with Toy Story, I think Toy Story is amazing. Just a great start to a franchise, introduces amazing characters, and Buzz and Woody, they're dynamic, all of the other characters, it works so well, but all of that is even further, like, exemplified in Toy Story 2 when you start to fully understand like Woody's inside dilemma and just being like a toy being used for his toy parts, and like you just don't like it. I don't know, it adds so much depth to these characters that like I would never think of like you could add depth to a toy like that. It makes no sense. And then you get to Toy Story 3, where it gets even crazier. You have one of the greatest villains of all time, in my opinion, and Lotso. And I might sound insane for saying that about some random purple teddy bear, but he is one of the greatest villains of all time. I don't care what anyone says. He is so menacing, insane, crazy. He was gonna burn all of the toys in a garbage chute. He is just so evil, and his backstory just tears me apart. I love everything about Toy Story 3. Again, near perfect movie. We're talking 9.5 out of 10. Toy Story 3 is so damn good. Next up on the list, we have Up. And before I do rank Up, I want to let you guys know that before Elemental, there was the Pixar short of Carl's first date. And it was honestly the saddest thing I've ever seen. But there's this one like cue, and Carl looks at something and they play the Up music. And it tore me apart. I was literally on my last legs during that when that music cue came on. I'm putting Up, honestly, below The Incredibles. I gotta go below The Incredibles. Up is the one Pixar movie that always makes me cry though. Like uncontrollably, I'm sobbing at Up every time I watch the movie. I think it's also the theme has just been solidified in my life as something that is depressing. It's the same thing with the La La Land theme. Then we have WALL-E, and I used to like this movie a lot, and I think I don't know if the Pixar ranking is still up on the channel, but I did one a very, very long time ago when I first started the channel with making movie videos on the channel, and I put it at like number 1. I just don't, like, I have not seen the movie in long enough to tell you guys if I still like the damn movie, but the thing is, every time I think about it, I still really like it, but I just don't think about it enough, and I feel like that says something about, again, I need to rewatch this damn movie, but I'm going to put it at top of good for now because I haven't seen it in long enough to give you guys a solid opinion on it, because I don't know, it's just something that like, it's good. Like I know it's good for sure, but I couldn't tell you if it was great. And I don't know if that love story is something that still like keeps me going, and if that's something that I still resonate with or connect to in any way. So I'm gonna put it at top of good for now. But then we have Lightyear, which is the one that released right before Elemental last summer, and I'm gonna put Lightyear at above Turning Red on meh, just because when I first watched the movie, I really liked it a lot, and I think on my tier list last year, I put it very, very high on my list. But it's definitely gone down, and that's just because the twist, I sat on it. The movie in general, I sat on it. I tried to rewatch the damn movie, and it is so boring, guys. Like, I cannot rewatch this movie. I just want to keep pressing +10 and skip it on Disney+. And that's not a good, like, if I'm feeling that, I'm just going to turn the movie off, because I'm not watching the movie at that point. I'm just skipping 10 seconds every 5 seconds so that I can get to the good parts of the movie, which means the movie sucks. But then we get to the newly released Elemental. And again, I feel like right out of watching a Pixar movie, I'm always very biased because it gives me a huge emotional rush, and it just does something to me where if I slightly connect to a relationship, an emotional beat, or like a family thing, like it just instantly changes something in my mind. It's a Pixar effect, as I like to call it. I'm gonna put Elemental, I'm going to put it in good. I'm going to put it in top of good, But I do want to say, I do believe I can move it up to bottom of great eventually, and I think I will definitely rewatch this movie. The pacing flew by for me personally. I think Elemental does an amazing job with like a Zootopia-esque type of movie, and it does an amazing job of just being emotional and being romantic. There aren't many pure romance movies in Pixar other than like, I think WALL-E is the only other one. And others have romantic undertones, but it's never truly like a rom-com. And Elemental is exactly that. It is pure romance and pure comedy, and not all the comedy hits for me, but I went to like a 10 a.m. screening on Friday, and my entire theater was laughing like the whole time. People were having so much fun with the movie, and again, comedy didn't hit as much for me, but the romantic elements definitely did, and it works very, very well. Again, I would definitely put it in great, but I feel like over time it's going to move down to good, and so I'm going to keep it at the top of good for now, but you could definitely see it move up to great on my next Pixar tier list. Also, creatively, such a great concept. Like I said before, feels like Zootopia, but definitely a little bit more boiled down, and honestly, I'm just going to go on a general Pixar rant here. I think a lot of Pixar, why it doesn't work as well for me anymore, is because the themes feel diluted in that they want to make them easy to consume for children. Whereas when you look at some of the older Pixar movies, like obviously themes are at the forefront. Like let's look at Finding Nemo, for example, or even Ratatouille. Yeah, the themes are pushed there, like fatherhood, family, and Finding Nemo, and then anyone can cook. You can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. Don't let people limit you in Ratatouille. But the thing is, that works there because at the time they were really the only ones doing that. But when you get to Elemental and your emotional cores are really just thrown out there, and it's a very, very heavy commentary on today's society and people and communities and stuff like that, you don't really get that nuanced feel. And that kind of takes you out of the movie because you can tell that you're just being fed all of these things. And the thing is, animated movies can actually still give us a good nuanced take. Look at Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, one of my favorite movies of last year. It does such an amazing job of telling a story about loss and taking advantage of this one life that you have, taking advantage of all the people that love you, that are around you, and understanding that your one life is all that you really need. Sadly, it never seems like Pixar can take that step into moving their themes a little bit lower, but just working on the writing element of it and making the themes more nuanced throughout the entirety of the film instead of just throwing out that, okay, this is today's society, blah, blah, blah. To an extent, it does just feel like, let's throw in a very prominent theme in today's society and we'll leave it at that, and then we'll let the rest of the movie play out how it is. We kind of get our emotion out of the way, we get our character work out of the way, and that's that. We don't have to make any layers to anything. Whereas other animated movies like Across the Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, and again Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, they all like take those emotional themes and they actually put them into every single character, put them into every single scene, put them into every single story beat. I feel like I'm complaining a lot, but I still really love Pixar, and I was very excited for Elemental, and it didn't really disappoint me. I still really, really enjoyed the film. But again, I feel like there's so much potential with Pixar that they're just becoming lazy and they're not taking advantage of a new art style or a new emotional theme or anything like that. They're just not innovating in any way how they used to, and so that as a whole is kind of disappointing. But guys, that does wrap up my ranking for all 27 Pixar movies. Let me know your ranking in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.